24 books that I've read thus far. It should have been 25. I should have read one more book. Let's go through the 24 books I've read this year. That is it. Okay. We don't want to talk about how many of those I haven't read. So I have my list of my Goodreads goal. I have read 24 of my goal of 80 for this year. I'm kind of hoping it will be a few more than that because I'm ambitious and because I want to read all of the books that exist in the world, and there's just not enough time to get through them all in the very short lives we have, unfortunately. So we do our best. So we're just going to dive right in. The very beginning of the year, I kicked off with a reread of Happy Place. This book for me was a 5-star, and I just wanted to feel confident to start the year. If you haven't read this, this is following Win and Harriet. It's a second chance romance. Sabrina and Cleo are Harriet's best friends from university, and they extended their friendship group to include their significant others. And so now they're all going on this trip to this place in Maine that they've gone to every year. That is Sabrina's dad's property. And anyway, he's selling it. It's a last hurrah. We're following Win and Harriet as they navigate this holiday while being kind of broken up, but trying to pretend to their friends that they're not. It's a whole thing. I love this story. I love it again. Emily Henry is queen. She is still to this day one of my favorite writers. I don't see that changing hugely. I just think she nails that whole find the thorn in your side thing, find the psychological shard of glass, so to speak. And she really just centers her entire novels around that and does it really well. So love her, loved this. Second time, it was a 5-star again. Next book that we read was, oh yes, this was a goodie. So I had heard really good things about The Ministry of Time. This book is kind of like a time travel romance, which love. This one was really interesting because you never hear the name of the main character who is narrating the story. And even in the description, it's referred to as the civil servant is contracted to be working in this secretive department as a bridge for the time travel expats, I think they call them, from multiple different years, and essentially helping them navigate 21st century life, essentially. And of course it's very secretive because it's time travel. And yeah, so we don't know who this person is by their name, which when I first picked it up, I was like, that feels like a relevant fact. And I even went to Google it. I was like, why don't we know her name? It feels weird. I feel like people should be referring to her as a name, but she never gets called anything. And I was like, that feels weird. And I wanted to go spoil it for myself because I was like, what does it mean? But I will just say, if you're reading this, don't look it up. Just keep reading, you'll figure it out. Ministry of Time is essentially a subdivision of the government, is trying to look into the validity of time travel. This person, the bridge, gets Commander Graham Gore, and we kind of alternate between him in the past and them in the present. It's her teaching him the modern day, and he's from 1847? So life's a little bit different. So I loved this one. I think I gave it a 4.5. It was so close to being a 5-star. There was just something in the end that I wanted a little something more, and I just didn't get it, but still outstanding. Debut authors nowadays, wow, I'm impressed. So would recommend this one. Next up, oh yeah, so that was followed by, hold on, I missed one. That was followed by Onyx Storm. Look, I'm not going to talk about this one too much because if you've read it, we all have feelings. I read the first book, the very beginning of 2024, kind of on the steamroller of everyone being so excited about Iron Flame coming out. And I was like, well, need to read the first one so I can read the second one. Read those. Loved them. Had such a good time. A lot of people read Fourth Wing were like, it's a 5-star, it's amazing. And then read Iron Flame and were like, whoa, that fell a little flat. For me, it was actually the opposite. I loved Full Thing, but I like even more loved Iron Flame. I was a little bit disappointed. I just felt like even the map thing, like I think she commented like, oh, we couldn't include it because it included spoilers. And I was like, I need to know, I need to see what's happening. Like, I can't visualize what you're telling me. Like, where are these things that you're telling me about? Like, I just couldn't. Yeah, and then there was like some weird trials, and I love a good trial, but they just felt very out of place. It was almost giving like the trials from ACOTAR. Like, they just felt like weirdly placed and too long. That makes sense? Anyway, okay, that was that. I need to see the full series before I can really judge it. But yeah, this one was a little bit of a for me. But anyway, I still really want to follow the story. But I was a little sad to finish it because there was just so much like unanswered questions, which maybe that was the point. I don't know. Anyway, so after that, I was having a bit of a spin, and so I was like, you know what? I need something good in my life. And I was like, well, what's good other than reading my 5-star reads? Because I just read 2 really good ones, and then I had a really spinny. I was like, no, let's go back to the good. I did a reading vlog where I read all of my old 5-star reads to see if they were like still living up to the hype, which was a really fun and very thought-provoking vlog, to the point that I lost the plot a little bit at the end. Downside is I still really don't know what I classify as 5-star. This challenge has just thrown me into a headspin. But for that vlog, I read, what did I read? I read Twilight. I really have to caveat that I read that when I was 17, maybe 16, 15, somewhere in that range. Yeah, so it was a long time ago. And I think that's why I was interested to reread it. To be honest, I had such a good time. And look, are there parts that I was like, ooh, cringe? Yes. Hands down, yes. Absolutely cringed. Did I also have a good time? Yes. Do I just really think that like I am waiting for the paranormal romance to like make its comeback? Because what a time to be alive when Twilight was all the rage. Just saying. Which, to be honest, I think we're starting to see this year. So I'm excited. Next one that I read for that same vlog was The Night Circus. So again, this was like a 5-star read for me. I just remember being so thought-provoking. I remembered something about a tree, but I remembered very little. In this, we're following magicians, and they essentially challenge each other to a magical competition where they each train a student to see who is like the best magician, or which is the best way to teach magic. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. It's a very weird concept. Anyway, we're following those 2 characters as they move through the competition, and it all is centered around this circus, the Night Circus. It also then starts to jump around with the timeline, and the 2 timelines converge at the end, which I really liked. And it was a great book again. I did really enjoy it. It was not a 5-star again. So I will warn you, be careful if you go back to read your old 5-stars. There's a very strong chance they will not be 5 stars because obviously Twilight was not a 5-star again. Had a great time, but not a 5-star. But it's very atmospheric and it's very vibey. If that's your thing, definitely check it out. Last on that challenge, I read The Great Gatsby. This thing really does not fail. Like, you can't lose. It's just such a classic. It's a classic, obviously. There is something fascinating how this book has stood the test of time. If you haven't read this book, essentially you're following Nick, who goes to Rhode Island to visit his cousin Daisy in the city, and moves in across the street. And there's this guy, Gatsby, who is kind of in love with her and hosts these like big crazy parties. It's set in like a very short period of time. I sat down and read this in a day. It's such an easy read, but I really would recommend. I actually recently did, like, when I did this reread, I did like a full immersion read. There's I think there was one by Jake Gyllenhaal or something on Audible Plus. So if you have Audible, check there. And it was really good to have it like full immersion. This is just one of those books that I couldn't stop like highlighting. Like, there was so many like little quotes. Like, I have so much here. Just the way that he phrases things and the way he like describes things is just so beautiful. in this very unique, maybe it's because it was written back then, I don't know. Here we go, I found one. This is just an example. It was one of those rare smiles with a quality of eternal reassurance in it that you may come across 4 or 5 times in a life. It faced, or seemed to face, the whole external world for an instant, and then concentrated on you, with an irresistible prejudice in your favour. It understood you just as far as you wanted to be understood, believed in you as you would like to believe in yourself, and assured you that it had precisely the impression of you that, at your best, you hoped to convey. Like, smiling. A whole paragraph on smiling. Like, that's this book. So if you just want to, like, revel in the English language and just the beauty of piecing together words, this guy. So next one was a non-reading vlog. I actually read it in between those two because I actually needed a bit of a break because I was spiraling because I no longer knew what was good in a book. And then I read The Great Gatsby and all was righted, but there was a moment there. I was a little not okay. But anyway, I came across in that time, I read Wait For It by Mariana Zapata, and I loved this book. Like, this is my first Mariana Zapata book, and it ate. Like, it was so good. So in this book, we're following Diana and Dallas. Diana is raising these 2 really sweet boys in baseball, I want to say the sport is. I don't know. It's a big part of the plot, but also not at all part of the plot. It's one of those. And essentially she meets one of her neighbors, Dallas. He's coaching the boys' team or something. One of the boys, the eldest boys' team. And anyway, they just like interact, and it's such a slow burn, and it's just so satisfying. And it's one of those like loves of like, I don't know how to describe. This is one of those like very, very slow burns, and like they didn't even, I don't know, stand next to each other for like 50% of the book. Like they were at a far distance for a long time, which I love. I personally am a huge fan of the slow burn. I personally think it is the only burn that should exist. That was so good. I think I gave that 4.5 or 4 to 5. I don't know, somewhere in there. It was great. Could highly recommend. And thank God I came across that because my faith in kids in books was wavering. Like I was pretty convinced that like I love kids, don't get me wrong. But kids in books, kids written into books, like I had such a hard time last year. I read Society of Irregular Witches, hated the children, drove me crazy. And then I also read The House on the Cerulean Sea, which I had to DNF because the kids were driving me so insane. And I was like, oh no, like, can I just not read books with kids? No, I just need the right books. And like, it wasn't like younger kids or anything like that because there was a little boy in this book and he was chef's kiss, written so well, loved him. Next one is another one that I didn't read for a vlog. I think I binged it in a day. I think I listened to the audiobook version and just like straight through. Was The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is such a fun concept and I really wanted to love it, but unfortunately it did not slow burn. In this book, we're following Clementine. She has recently moved into her grandmother's apartment that apparently has like a time slip, so sometimes it like slips back 7 years in the past. Obviously, she slips back in the past and she's in her apartment and there's this guy in her apartment and they kind of hit it off, yada yada, and she's jumping between the past and the present when her apartment kind of takes her where it wants. Look, I'm not going to say too much more about it. There was like a little surprise, I think, toward the end, and I was like, oh yeah, but to be honest, I think I guessed the ending 15% in, and I was like, oh, like, yeah. But yeah, like, wasn't my crazy favorite, just a 3-star. It was just a fun time. So next book I read was Dark Matter. This was part of a 24-hour reading challenge that I miserably failed. Like, I think it turned up there, like, it was 3 days because I was stopping the clock every time I didn't read, and I just, like, took a lot of breaks, so it took 3 days. But yeah, that's a story for a different day. This was so close to being a 5-star. I loved it so much. I think the ending just got a little weird for me. We're following Jason Dresden. He is this, like, physics professor, and he ends up going out to drinks with one of his friends who's gone on to win this like very prestigious prize. Anyway, he comes home to his like wife and kid, And he's just kind of like ruminating, like, did I make the right choice in life? Like, by having a kid, yada yada. Like, and he's kind of almost like dreaming, like, in this alternative reality where I had the opportunity to go and do my doctorate and not have a kid. Like, would I do that? And that sets the scene because he is then finding himself abducted by a masked abductor, and essentially gets catapulted into a different, what he guesses is a different timeline. It's not going well. Oh no. And he's trying to find his way home, and through the process he's getting to face all those questions that he asked in the beginning. So this book deals a lot with like quantum physics and parallel universes and multiple dimensions. And if you ever contemplated quantum physics, I read this like it was a Bible, like it was teaching me about quantum physics, and I guarantee it probably was not. But that's between me and God. So I also really like Blake Crouch, his writing style. I have more of his books and I'm excited to check them out. So that was a goodie. On that same 24-hour reading challenge, I switched gears. I moved to Dungeon Crawler Carl. This is a really fun one. We're following this guy, Carl, who is like hanging out with his ex-girlfriend's cat because she just dumped him. He's like wanting to keep the cat, and that's not the point. So he's with this cat and it's late at night and this cat jumps out to the tree, and so he gets like into he's just wearing his boxes and throws on some like, I don't think he throws on shoes, but like runs outside to get this cat, and like all of a sudden like every building like squishes, like imagine like being like zapped to like flat and disappear. That essentially happens, and then these portals open into the ground, and an alien race says, hey Earth, we have taken all of your earthly matter, and if you would like the chance to win it back, you can enter the dungeon and play the game. And he's standing there with no shoes, and it's like the middle of winter. He's like, well, if I stay here I'm dead, so best play the game. And so anyway, he goes down there with his cat, or his ex-girlfriend's cat, technically, Donut, Princess Donut, actually, I believe her name is called. And it is truly such a fun read. I think there was parts that I really struggled with in the beginning because I'm not a gamer per se. I love a good game every now and then, but I'm not a gamer. And so I think this is definitely like geared toward like people who love to game. Yeah, but I will say, after like we got through the like the gamifying part, I definitely found myself reaching for book 2. It really just, it was a good time. It was like, I think I described it at the time, was like, it felt like a cozy sci-fi. And look, I've tried cozy fantasy and I'm not ready to give up yet, but it's not feeling like my vibe. But cozy sci-fi, I can get on board with. Okay, so then next I read Between Us. This is my first Mhairi Mcfarlane book. I think I originally said this was like a romance, but I don't know if it's contemporary romance or if it's like women's fiction. It feels a little more women's fiction in hindsight, to be honest. I kind of got into it thinking it was romance, but I think it's more women's fiction, women's contemporary fiction. In this book, we start off with Joe and Rosen, who've been together like 10 plus years. Rosen is a teacher, Joe is writing a TV show and it's airing, and so him and all his friends meet up in like an Airbnb, this big, beautiful Airbnb, to screen it. And anyway, when they show it, like we've been kind of noticing that Rosen and Joe kind of are having a bit of difficulty in their relationship anyway, but essentially when they air the first episode, there's something in there that was really intimate and personal to Rosen that she had only told him, and he used it as a storyline, and she was like, well, crap, that sucks. And then there's a few other things in the show that she then starts to be like, is that also true? Is that also true? And so she kind of goes on this like detective mission to figure out what is the truth behind their relationship. And then there is another romance that does develop, which is also really fun, but it's not like, I think I went into it thinking that was going to be the center of the plot. It's not. It's just like a nice little bonus added. But I did really enjoy this one. What came next? Ooh, this one was a controversial one. So the next book I read, I don't own a physical copy. was deepened. We're following Scarlett, who is a competitive diver, and she's been having some issues with her diving since she had an accident the previous year, and she just can't quite do an inward dive, which by the time you get through the end of the book, you'll want to look up what an inward dive means. It's the inward. You literally just go in. She's friends with this girl named Pen, who is dating this guy named Lucas. And anyway, they look like the dream couple, but they end up breaking up. And Pen sets up Lucas and Scarlett because she knows that they're both into the same kink. That had been an issue for Pen and Lucas because she wasn't. And she was like, hey, well, whenever you guys get together, you have more in common than we ever did. How about it? Then their relationship kind of continues that direction. What a lot of people really hated about this book was Pen, this extra character who was like kind of doing some cringy, strange behavior. And I will say, yes, it was a little cringy, a little strange. But I think the more you read through the story, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but the more you read through the story, you understand their history, Lucas and Pen. It's honestly, to me, made a lot of sense. And then the other thing that I have to mention is a lot of people were like, oh, like the Scarlett like went to therapy, but she wasn't being open to her therapist, but then started to be really open to this guy that she was seeing. And yes, I will say, if you're not being open to your therapist, that's not good. If you feel like you can only be safe with your partner, like the person you're sleeping with, like that's not great. But the context of being put in therapy, she was put in therapy as a child because of something her dad did. Speaking from personal experience, so I had something happen to me when I was really, really little. And so to help cope with that, my dad put me in therapy, and I was never comfortable to speak to that person because I didn't know them. I didn't have rapport. I was tiny. I didn't understand the concept of therapy. Like, I just felt like I was being punished. And so in the context of that, from me, like I understood that. I felt like I actually could really relate to that personally. So just, if that's a qualm that you have, just context I think is appropriate. I actually really enjoyed it. I think Ali Hazelwood did a great job with what she intended to do, which is to bring attention to and speak to, like start the conversation about BDSM in like a really chill way. That was the other qualm people had. It was like, it's not very kinky, which is not really. It's very chill. And look, like if you have read a lot of like kinky books, this is probably not the book for you. All right, that was that. Next book was not only the most heartbreaking, but the most probably life-changing book I've ever read. Changed my life for the better and worse. And that book was Manacled by SenLinYu. I added this to my TBR last year. As soon as I heard that it was going to be taken off AO3, I was like running to go download it. And thank God I did, because this book was, I can't even truly put words to it. I did do a whole vlog of a reading vlog. I've done a non-spoiler version. There will be a spoiler version too. And thank God I recorded all of that, because I don't know if I'm ready to relive the experience of reading it physically, because it was so, like why is this so good? I think I read it in 9 days. But I had to take like a 4-day break somewhere in there. So I probably finished it in 5 days. This is a 360,000 word book. It is the equivalent, for context, of these two books put together. That is how big that book is. I think it clocks over 1,000 pages. It like, oh my God, I've ruined it. How do I do this? Okay, we're on the shelf again. Yeah, so this book broke me and healed me and hurt me and made me look at the world completely differently. And it started an obsession that I did not see coming. Honestly, I had heard about dramione fiction and I was like, I don't get it. I really don't get it, because I was like a Harry Potter nerd. Probably not to the extreme. Like I loved Harry Potter, but not crazy, but like a pretty good amount. And I was like, Hermione and Ron make sense. Like, sure. Like, naive. And then when I read this book, I was like, hold on, wait, what? No. I'm sorry, in what world were Ron and her ever going to work? Like, Now that I have seen this, I cannot unsee. And I think J.K. Rowling needs a rewrite. I think we need a final chapter rewrite of Harry Potter and Draco. Oh, and The Cursed Child, because that also would be a carry-on effect. So in my mind, both books are true. I view them the same way that Dark Matter has different timelines. Yeah, so does Harry Potter. In my mind, they all exist simultaneously. Anyway, I'm ranting. Manacled, if you haven't read it, essentially we kick off after 5th year in Harry Potter, so the 5th book, Order of the Phoenix, and they lose the battle at the end. Basically, this is an alternative universe where the good guys did not win. Voldemort is no longer worried about his pure blood situation, so he essentially is just like, hey, we've got a bunch of magical folk who are prisoners, let's use them. And so it's basically Handmaid's Tale meets Harry Potter. That's kind of the vibes. Her writing is so beautiful. Like, the fact that she did not have, like, I don't think she had an editor. It's crazy to me. Like, truly crazy. Anyway. Needless to say, it was a 6-star or 7-star. I don't know. It broke the scale. So then following that, we just needed a comfort read. I needed something cozy and comforting. So I read 4, the follow-up to Divergent. I hadn't read Divergent in... No, that's a lie. I read Divergent last year. Yeah, no shame. Yeah, so I read that and I loved it. I had such a good time. I don't know why I waited so long. We're just essentially following 4 little stories. I think it's 4 segments, which is very fitting. Really sweet, short, loved it. 6 hours, I think, on audiobook. Highly recommend if you are a Divergent fan. Then I read... Hold on, this is so out of order. Okay. Well, I've skipped a bit, but that's fine. I don't know. Oh, yeah, I know why. Hold on. So, okay. Technically, this next book I read it as part of my 24-hour challenge that I did not succeed in. Part of the reasons I did not succeed is I chose this book at the end, which it is like an 800-page monstrosity. It is huge. And obviously I didn't finish it in the challenge, which is why it's marked as I finished later. But truth be told, I didn't actually finish this book, but I'm counting it as a read, which I never do, honestly. But I got 85% through this book before I DNF'd. I've never done that. Like, I've never committed so much of my time to a book to DNF. Like, if I'm usually at 85%, I'm like, well, I'll just finish. But no. So this book was Book of Azriel. I really thought that this was such a strong start. I really liked it. Really strong female character. And their relationship was really fun and, like, was giving all the good vibes. But then it just dragged on unnecessarily. Like, I felt like there was a lot of scenes that weren't, like, building to anything. But again, like, I don't know. It just felt like I was reading for a lifetime. And 85% to 100% was going to be, like, another 300 pages. And I just didn't have that in me. Look, I'm really bad at DNFing, so I might come back to it at another point when I have patience. But that one, we DNF'd. That was my first DNF of the year. The next book that I read, we began dramione fiction. We delved into fan fiction. I downloaded like 30 to my Kindle. I'm going to have to start a series because I keep reading them and they're so good. The first one I read was The Right Thing to Do, and my God, was it the right thing to do to read this one first. This one is like part office romance, part academic rivals. This is like a year off. I think they're 19, so it's just after they've finished school and they're working at the ministry, and Hermione essentially goes to a trial at the ministry to help Draco go free after his whole like Death Eater thing, and basically saying like he is the reason that we like her and Harry Potter survived at the Draco Manor, the Malfoy Manor that day. And so she's gonna be like, no, please free him. And it's just kind of their love story. It's really cute and sweet, and it's HEA, and it's just like, if you've read Manacled, run to read this. It will heal your heart. Like, it was everything I needed and more. So yeah, that was perfect. I loved it. And so while I was on the train, I just kept going. I couldn't quite satiate the hunger for I just can't describe how addictive them as a couple is. Like, they just work so well. I can't put words to it. I'll be studying this for years to come. Anyway, I stumbled on a gem, which actually was the perfect little follow-up to Deep End, to be honest. I'm glad I read that first because we went... That was not the Deep End, this was the Deep End. I read Meet Me in Dreamland, and it is such a fun concept. This is a reality. It's really funny. It's very underrated, actually, and very underread. Kind of probably because of the content, but really well written. Anyway, Meet Me in Dreamland, we're following Hermione is essentially kinky in this book, but because she's like the golden girl and all these different things, she's really struggling to express that with a partner. And so anyway, she devises this idea to create a magical locket where she can like play out all of her fantasies. And it is hilarious. It is so funny. This thing is so well written. Sinflower81, I see you. I have no idea who you are. I would love to thank you. It's such a good time. Someone did a audio of it as well. Okay, so the podcast is the Dramione Archives, and it's done by 2 different readers. So I think it's Dramione Archives partnered up with a different podcast, a podcaster, I guess. All they do is narrate Dramione fictions. Love that for me, and probably you. And then partners up with the Wizard Weezers, and so we get the dual POV from different voices, and they've just done such a good job. So anyway, if you like audiobooks, I would highly recommend the audio as well. And that's just on Spotify. Anyway, she jumps into her first fantasy. I haven't laughed this hard this year. I'm losing it. Okay, hold on. Okay, I can tell you about this. It's fine. We'll get through this. Okay. Hermione is going back into her little dreamscape, and every time it ends up being Draco, and she's like, why the hell does he keep showing up? And then he's having just random dreams, so we flip to his POV, and he's like, what the fuck's happening? Oh, it gets me every time. Anyway, so I have to say it's a great time. They play out a lot of different very weird and hilarious magical kinks, I guess. Just very like, oh, you'll have a good laugh. The romance plot as well, interweaving in amongst all of that, is just so well done. And I really did love this book. What was it? Gosh, the funniest scene was the poison. Hold on. Pick your poison. I have never laughed so hard. If you don't want to read the whole fiction, just go to Pick Your Poison. It is the funniest scene. Theo hosts a party. He's Draco's friend. He shows up in a lot of the fics. Theo, Blaze. Anyway, he hosts a party, and there's like a table of shots that are all different potions. And so like all the different potions do like different things. So like one might like make you lust. One might make you believe everything someone tells you. So like some might like make you grow boobs. Like some of them make you orgasm. Like there's so many funny ones. And Neville's, what was his? His was the best. His was believing that everyone is in love with you. And just like the dynamics, how they all fall together. It's just like, it's honestly like it's like a comedy skit. It's comedy gold. So funny. Anyway, if you don't read this book, go and read that chapter at least, because it is hilarious. Anyway, we're going to stop talking about it. I've had such a good time this year reading Dramione fiction. I'm impressed. And I'm also so thankful for the amount of fanfic authors that are now coming out, because damn, don't they deserve it. Like these people like writing us these like full-length novels that are just so good they deserve it. They deserve to be published. Okay, next book. Okay, so after that, I was like, okay, cool. We're going to go into some new releases. I started off that with The Favourite. I heard a lot of people talk about it being related to Magnolia Parks, and I was like, well, don't mind if I do. I have such strong feelings, and honestly, if you want the full spiel, I did a whole reading vlog on this, and I went through the whole gamut of emotion with this. Wow, what a messy story so far. Honestly, where everyone else had issues with Deep End, I had issues with this. For me, there was just some very odd emotional boundaries in the last, like, that much. I don't know, that much. The last, like, 10-15% just went a little haywire. But I must say, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. So, there's that. Jury's out on that one. Then I read Sunrise on the Reaping, which there were tears that, like, it was very formulaic. I loved that in many ways. Like, I think it was just so very, like, almost comforting. The end broke me. The end broke me in ways that I may never recover from. I feel like it's about to get worse. Kind of knew what was happening, but just to, like, it's almost like you knew what was happening, but you got the exact why. So, yeah, that was that. And then this was my first horror of the year, and truth be told, I haven't read a lot of horrors really at all, to be honest. So I'm trying to expand my genres this year. And so I saw this on the list, and the premise seemed really cool. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. Essentially in this, we're following a group of teenage girls who have been sent away to a home to give birth because they're all pregnant. And it's set in the 70s when unmarried pregnancy was a no-no, let alone being 15. And so Fern essentially then meets this librarian who turns out to be this witch, gives her a book, and the girls start practicing magic to kind of right the wrongs of the people trying to, like, take away their autonomy over their bodies and their lives and their babies. And I loved so much of this book. The gore aspect didn't freak me out as much as I thought it would. There was definitely some weird parts. The human intervention into childbirth was a little ick for me. So if that is a trigger for you, just a heads up, that is in there. The actual childbirth thing was fine. There were actually childbirth scenes in there that weren't very influenced, and those were much better. But yeah, a lot of giving birth, so if that's not your vibe, run away. Then we read I have been having a great reading year. Honestly, I am so stoked with this reading year. I've had more 5 stars. I'm now second guessing all of these ratings, to be honest. But look, I've had some standout reads this year. And so the next one that was a standout was Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. I always go to say Hannah Bonham Carter, and it's not that. And it's Helen Bonham Carter. Anyway, not the point. First time reading Hannah Bonham Young, and I didn't realize this, but this was I believe an indie release. And I am loving all of the indie releases that are being picked up because, they deserve it. This one especially. So we're following Win and Bo. They meet at a Halloween party hosted by their friends, and they kind of start chatting because they're both dressed as pirates because, for similar reasons, she has an underdeveloped hand that she is using to hold a hook. So she's got the hook, and he has a prosthetic leg that he is using as a what do you call a pirate leg? What is that called? What is a peg leg? Okay. I'm not the only one. It's literally the first question. What is a pirate's leg called? A peg leg. So he has like a peg leg in place of his prosthesis, and so they get chatting, they kind of have a hookup one night stand, and it is a pregnancy trope. So she finds out she's pregnant, and we kind of then get to follow their journey navigating this thing while also, like, navigating their feelings, because obviously they had a one night stand together, yada yada. And they are just so dang sweet. Their like dynamic was chef's kiss perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. I loved it. And then I followed it up with another banger. Like, I have just had hit after hit after hit. I followed it up with Lights Out by Navessa Allen. I had seen people like going on a walk, listening to this audiobook, having a giggle, and then I like heard a few quotes from it, and I was
tempted to send her a DM explaining myself, but how would that work? Hey, Ali, it's me, the man who broke into your house. I was just watching you through the camera I hid in your room, and I wanted to let you know that you are correct. I am not, in fact, a serial killer.
Whoa, that's a little dark. And then I read the outline. I was like, stalker romance. Yeah. What? And so I actually just like benched it. I'm pretty sure I heard about it like last year. And then for whatever reason, you know what? I'll give it a go. Oh no, it was definitely Larry. If I've been convinced to read anything, it's because of this woman. Okay, so in Lights Out, we're following Ali, who is a ER nurse. She has developed a bit of a obsession with masked men on her For You page. And then simultaneously we're following Josh, and turns out to be the masked man that she really likes all his content. And he's kind of a bit of a tech geek, and he's like, well, I want to see if she's actually into what she says she's into. So he kind of stalks her and like internet hacks her a little bit, and then breaks into her house and leaves her a mask on her bed and plants cameras. And like all of this, I'm saying it out loud, and it sounds terrifying and crazy, but it is hilarious. The way, you know, like you basically get to like hear their inner dialogue, and they'll like go do something, like he'll go do the thing, and he's like, God, that sounds crazy, but like I don't mean it that, like I can't. It's very like Butcher and Blackbird. If you read that and really liked it, chances are you might find this very funny. It is in the vein of like dark romance comedy. It's a dark romance comedy. It's so funny. He's honestly like reads like a teenage kid who has a crush and is trying to figure it out. And he does it, and he's like, this is creepy, but like if she can, like if she's okay with it, it's fine. Like, I don't know, like it's obviously not okay. But it's funny. I'm going to leave it at that. Then the two most recent ones that bring me up to 23 and 24 are, because I was on the train of, I was reading all The Right Thing to Do, which is from Hermione's perspective. I, of course, had to read the flip side, which is Draco's POV, which is All the Wrong Things, and Chef's Kiss. Again, loved it, had such a good time. And because I was like, okay, 2 for 2, I'm obsessed with this author. She is actually published now. And so I was like, well, I have to check out her published work to see if it's still a vibe. Anyway, so because of that, I then went to one of her published novels. So this is Julie Soto, is the author. And the book I read was Forget Me Not, and I'd heard mixed reviews of this. I actually don't know how to rate it yet. I'm really conflicted, but essentially we are following Amma and Elliot. Amma is a wedding planner, and it's really interesting. I actually like, the more I think on it, the more I really like it. But essentially we have Amma's POV going forward with like the present timeline, and we see her, and she meets up with this guy, Elliot, who is a flower shop owner, and instantly we get to like know that sounds like they've dated in the past. We don't really know the full story, but then you also get the flip side. As we go to his POV, we're actually going past to present, so we kind of like work our way back to the present, and it's really beautiful, like actually like shivers. They converge at the end, so they both like tell a flipped perspective of the very end, which I really liked. Like that part I really enjoyed. The only part I honestly didn't enjoy of this book was the characterization of Elliot in the beginning. He just came across like a bit of a douche. Like he was just rude, and like, you know how people will write like a grumpy in a sunshine. I think it is so hard to write a grumpy well, and I think it's so easy to go grumpy mean. And I think for me, he just came across as grumpy mean in the beginning. But by halfway, like, I was quite hooked on the story. And then once we got about halfway, I was like, oh, hold on, wait. And he kind of was starting to shift a little bit. So I don't know. But overall, I still loved her writing style, and I cannot wait. I think I need to read The Auction, and then I'm going to read A Rose in Chains, because I have a problem. So that brings me to the end of my list of books read for this year. 24 books that I've read thus far. It should have been 25. I should have read one more book. Well, technically, hold on, I can give you one more book. Technically reading one more book. I haven't finished it yet though. I'm currently reading Beartown. I haven't finished though, so I can't comment. But I can comment on the 20 to 30% that I've currently read, and it is superb. I am thinking that we are going to have another 5-star, and I no longer can trust my ratings. That, or I'm just picking excellent books. So, for myself, not just like generally. I just personally, because last year I just reached for the most popular books, and that is not always the case for my taste. And so I think this year I've been a little more picky. Like, people were really into Crimson Moth, and I tried it, and I was like, you know what? No, it's not for me. So I didn't read it. And so I've been quite picky with a lot of books, and I've started a lot of books that I haven't finished. So I think that we're going to credit it to that. Yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for sticking around, and I will see you in the next one.